I never imagined that my own blood would betray me so deeply. And yet, it was my own family who lit the fire that turned me into someone unrecognizable. Before I tell you what happened, let me ask you this. What would you do if you discovered that the people who raised you, who smiled at you across the dinner table every night, had been weaving lies around you all your life? And tell me, where are you watching from right now? I love knowing how far these stories reach. My name is Isabelle. I'm 25 years old, and I used to think my family was perfect. My parents were respected in our community. My father was a businessman. My mother the woman who seemed to hold everything together with grace. I had an older brother, Adrian, who was the golden child, and a younger sister, Sophie, who was delicate and sweet. And me. I was always the one in the middle, the one who did what she was told, who tried not to cause trouble, who thought loyalty to family was everything. But loyalty means nothing when it is not returned. It started after my father's sudden death. He passed away in his sleep one evening, leaving behind his company, his estate, and what I thought was a fair share of wealth for all of us. The will reading was supposed to bring closure. Instead, it ripped me apart. I sat in the lawyer's office, hands trembling as the papers were read aloud. Everything, and I mean everything, was left to Adrian. The company, the properties, the stocks. Sophie was granted a small trust fund. And me. I was given nothing but a letter. The letter was short, cold, and final. Isabelle, you are strong enough to build your own path. This is Adrian's responsibility to carry forward. I felt the blood drain from my face. My own father had written me out of his legacy. No explanation, no conversation, no chance to even ask why. I looked at my mother, searching for answers, but she avoided my eyes. Adrian smirked, as if he had known all along. The letter haunted me for weeks. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces began to fall into place. Memories I had ignored came rushing back. Hushed arguments behind closed doors, my mother's coldness toward me compared to the warmth she showered on Adrian, the way my father would grow distant whenever I asked about the company. Something was wrong. One night, unable to sleep, I searched through my father's study. Hidden behind old files, I found documents that shattered the last illusions of my childhood. Papers showing company shares transferred quietly to Adrian over years, letters from my father praising him as the true heir, and worst of all, photographs of my mother with another man. Dated 26 years ago. My heart stopped. 26 years ago, that was the year I was born. I pieced it together slowly, painfully. Adrian wasn't just the golden child. He was my father's only blood child. I wasn't my father's daughter. I was the result of my mother's affair. That's why I was cut out. That's why the warmth was never the same. I had been living a lie my whole life, believing I belonged to a family that never fully claimed me. The betrayal burned through me like poison. And in that moment, I swore I would not stay silent. They thought they could erase me, lock me out, cast me aside as if I had never existed. They were wrong. I began to plan my revenge. Adrian thrived on the company's image. He was hailed as the brilliant heir, the savior who would carry our father's legacy forward. My mother basked in his success, the perfect family at her side. Sophie, sweet and naive, never questioned any of it. But I knew their cracks. I dug into the company's accounts. It wasn't hard. I had once been trusted enough to know the passwords. And what I found made me smile through my rage. Adrian wasn't as perfect as he seemed. Hidden debts, shady deals, bribes tucked into shell companies. The kind of corruption that could ruin reputations overnight. I gathered everything into a file. But instead of going to the authorities right away, I waited. Revenge isn't just about striking, it's about timing. The opportunity came at the company's annual gala, a grand event where politicians, business tycoons, and the press gathered to applaud Adrian's genius. I walked in wearing a simple black dress, invisible in the sea of glittering gowns. Nobody noticed me. Nobody ever did. Until the screens lit up. I had hacked the presentation. Instead of glossy slides showcasing Adrian's achievements, the screens displayed the documents I had gathered, evidence of fraud, bribes, and embezzlement. Gasps filled the room. Reporters scrambled for their phones. Adrian's face went pale as the empire he had stolen crumbled before his eyes. And I wasn't done. While chaos erupted at the gala, I slipped away to confront my mother. I found her in her private lounge, eyes blazing with fury. "You did this," she hissed. "No," I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "You did this when you lied to me my entire life. When you let me believe I was his daughter. When you chose your secret over me." Her face tightened. "You don't understand. Protecting Adrian was the only way. Protecting him. Or protecting yourself. Yes. You were afraid the truth would come out, that I wasn't his. But guess what, Mother? Now everyone will know what kind of family you really are." She slapped me. The sting barely registered compared to the years of invisible wounds she had carved into me. I looked her straight in the eye and whispered, "That was the last time you hurt me." Within weeks, Adrian's empire collapsed. Investigations opened, investors pulled out. His name dragged across headlines. My mother withdrew from society, too ashamed to show her face. Sophie, confused and heartbroken, begged me to stop. But I couldn't. Not until they felt every ounce of the betrayal they had given me. But here's the twist. Just when I thought I had won, Sophie showed up at my door. She held a box of letters. My father's letters. Letters he had written to me but never sent. Letters where he admitted his doubts, his anger at my mother, his fear of losing the company. But hidden in those letters was something else. Love. He knew I wasn't his blood, but he had loved me anyway. Tears blurred my eyes as I read his words. All this time I thought I had been nothing to him. But he had seen me as his daughter, even if he didn't know how to show it. The realization broke me. My revenge had destroyed Adrian and my mother. But in doing so, I had destroyed the company my father had built, the very thing he had hoped to pass on, whether to me or Adrian. So what was my victory worth? Even now, months later, I lie awake wondering if I went too far. If maybe I should have walked away, let karma take its course. But then I remember the look on Adrian's face when the truth unraveled, the way my mother's pride turned to dust, and I feel that flicker of satisfaction again. There were consequences I hadn't fully anticipated. Employees lost jobs overnight when investors pulled funding. Long-time clients were left scrambling. People who had nothing to do with my family's deceit suffered because a facade crumbled. That truth gnawed at me in quieter moments, making the triumph taste small and complicated. Revenge had unspooled a chain reaction, one I had set in motion with righteous anger but hadn't fully measured for collateral damage. Then, one damp morning, a man in a suit came to my apartment. He introduced himself as a legal representative for a foundation my father had once supported. "Miss Delacroix," he said, using my family name, "your father left instructions for a charitable trust to be established if the company were to falter. He named you as a potential steward if you chose to accept responsibility." My hands shook. "Why would he do that?" "Yes. He loved you," the man said simply. "Not in the way you might have expected, but he believed in your integrity." That moment shifted something. If my father had wanted me to step in and rebuild what he had created in a more honest form, then perhaps my destruction could be also a beginning. Maybe I could take this rubble and make something that didn't rest on secrets. I thought about Sophie, fragile and broken, but still my sister in blood and memory, and about the employees who had lost livelihoods because of our family's lies. I thought about the letters, the late confessions, the way my father had wanted to protect us in his own confused way. So I took a risk that surprised even me. I met with former employees, listened to their stories, and apologized without excuses. I contacted a few of the clients Adrian had used as buffers and offered transparency and restitution where I could. It wasn't fast. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow and painful work, the kind that eats pride and replaces it with quiet dignity. Some people forgave me. Some never could. Sophie, after months of silence, began to come around. She helped me sort through the foundation's paperwork and, in the small hours, we read Dad's letters together. We cried, we argued, we confessed truths that had been locked away for years. It wasn't redemption. It was messy reconciliation. Adrian disappeared from public life. Rumor said he moved overseas and took a new name. I'm not sure if I regret that he left or if I'm grateful he stayed away. The woman who had been my mother retreated into a world of private grief and, eventually, began to volunteer quietly at the very foundation I helped run. Perhaps shame had taught her humility. Perhaps I was giving her too much credit. I don't know. There were nights I sat on the foundation office roof, watching the city pulse and wondering if my actions were justified. I thought of revenge as a river. It has force and can clear debris, but it can also drown what it touches. I had used its current to wash away a nightmare, but in doing so, I had learned responsibility for the aftermath. Years later, the charity has rebuilt schools and supported families affected by corporate collapses, a small attempt at restitution for a disaster my family helped create. Sophie and I run a small scholarship program in my father's name. Ironic and necessary. People tell me they admire what we do. That makes me proud in a way revenge never could. I won't pretend the scars are gone. I still flinch at sudden silences and at the sight of a polished handshake. I still hold my father's unsent letters to the light, feeling both heat and sorrow. But I also know now that power without conscience corrodes, and that revenge, while it can correct wrongs, must be followed by repair if you want your life to mean more than a headline. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have torn everything down knowing the fallout would hurt more than the guilty? Or would you have walked away and let time do its work? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. And if this story touched you, like and subscribe for more, because the next one I bring will push the line between justice and vengeance even further, and I promise you, it won't be easy to forget.